Curse of Ravenswood Estate. Deep in the heart of the American South, where the fog clung to the earth like the cold hand of death, Ravenswood Estate stood, an ancient, forgotten relic of a once grand mansion, now nothing more than a decaying husk. Shrouded in darkness, its twisted silhouette could barely be seen through the dense mist that rolled in from the swamp. The locals spoke of Ravenswood only in hushed tones, for it was cursed, its walls steeped in blood, tragedy, and unspeakable horrors. The Holloway family, once the proud inhabitants of the estate, had vanished without a trace, their names erased from history as if the earth had swallowed them whole. But that was not the worst of it. No, Ravenswood's curse was darker, more terrifying. It was said that a malevolent spirit, one born of rage and sorrow, haunted the estate, a restless entity that craved vengeance and could never be sated. The very land, poisoned by its existence, seemed to breathe with malevolent intent. For years, Ravenswood sat empty, abandoned by all who dared to speak of it. But even in its desolation, it was never truly alone. The air around it seemed to shimmer with an unnatural presence, as if something waited just beyond the edge of perception. It was on a moonless night that four friends, Lena, Jake, Ethan, and Sarah, decided to test their courage, to defy the curse that had terrified the town for generations. Armed with nothing but flashlights, fearlessness, and reckless curiosity, they ventured down the overgrown path that led to the mansion. Each step they took seemed to drag them deeper into the earth's shadow, closer to something far worse than they could ever imagine. As they crossed the rusted gates, an icy gust of wind swept through the air, a chill that gripped their very souls. The mansion loomed before them, its windows empty, like hollow eyes staring into the depths of their hearts. The ground beneath their feet was soft and uneven, as though the earth itself was alive, and it wanted to swallow them whole. "I don't know about this," Ethan whispered, his voice shaky. Lena, trying to steady her nerves, forced a smile. "We're fine. Let's just get inside and see what's really going on." But the moment they pushed open the massive wooden door, it groaned in protest, as though it had been waiting centuries to close behind them. The instant they crossed the threshold, the air thickened. It smelled of rot, of something ancient and decayed, as though the house itself had been festering in silence, waiting for them to enter. A low, guttural hum vibrated through the walls, an unnatural sound that made their skin crawl and their hearts race. "Did you hear that?" Sarah's voice trembled as she spun around, her flashlight flickering wildly. "I think we should leave," Jake said, his breath coming in short gasps. His flashlight illuminated the grand staircase ahead, its steps warped and shattered as though something monstrous had dragged its weight across them. Before they could react, the door slammed shut behind them with such force that the whole house seemed to shudder. Panic set in. They tried the door, locked as if the house itself had trapped them inside, and then they heard it. Slow, dragging footsteps. At first faint, then growing louder, the sound of something or someone crawling down the hallway toward them. The heavy, uneven footfalls echoed from above, each one more deliberate than the last. Lena's heart raced. "We need to get out. Now." But before they could move, they froze. At the top of the stairs, a figure emerged. A woman dressed in tattered white, her long black hair hanging in tangled strands, obscuring her face. Her movements were jerky, disjointed, like marionette strings pulling at her limbs. And then, she smiled. A twisted, inhuman smile that stretched too wide, too unnaturally, revealing jagged teeth stained with old blood. "Leave, before it's too late," she hissed, her voice a raspy whisper that seemed to come from all directions at once. The room grew colder, the temperature dropping so rapidly that their breath turned to mist. The walls began to close in, as though the very house itself was alive, squeezing the life from them. The figure at the top of the stairs tilted her head, her black eyes burning with malice. And then, the whispers began, soft at first, like the rustle of leaves, but soon growing louder, more insistent, filling the room with a chorus of voices, ancient and angry. "You shouldn't have come. You will never leave. Ravenswood claims all who enter." The woman's face contorted, her eyes wide, bloodshot, as though she had witnessed unspeakable horrors, horrors that now burned in her gaze. She opened her mouth and a scream tore from her throat. It was a raw, guttural sound that shook the very foundations of the mansion, a scream that echoed through the halls, a scream that would haunt their souls forever. The walls groaned, and the floor cracked open beneath them. Darkness poured from the cracks, a wave of inky blackness that surged toward them like a living, breathing entity. The ghostly figures of the Holloway family materialized from the shadows, suffering souls, twisted and tormented, their eyes empty, their faces frozen in eternal agony. They reached out with icy fingers, their touch like fire on Lena's skin. The whispers grew deafening, their words an onslaught of terror. "You should have stayed away. You're ours now." The figures moved closer, closing in on them, their ragged breaths filling the air. One by one, the friends tried to run, to escape the nightmare they had unleashed, but every step they took only brought them deeper into the mansion's grasp. The mansion groaned again, louder this time, as if it were alive, feeding on their fear. And just as they reached the door, desperate to escape, it slammed shut with a deafening bang, trapping them inside. Lena's pulse raced as she fought to push the door open. It was useless. The house was too strong. But with a final frantic push, the door creaked open just enough for them to tumble out into the night. They ran, breathless and panicked, never looking back, never daring to glance at the house that had nearly consumed them. But as they glanced over their shoulders, they saw the windows of Ravenswood glowing with an unnatural, malevolent light. The curse was far from over. And the house was watching. Subscribe for more.